objective here is muscular strength, core strength, muscular endurance of the core, and then also spinal articulation. So you're going to begin supine or on your back with the legs toward the ceiling. So I did this, I did half of this today and I did half of this yesterday. Sometimes I'll do all of it, depending on what people want. People love to do ab work, or maybe they don't love it, but they know they need to do it. So I always incorporate some sort of ab work. But I like to kind of keep it dancer oriented. What I did for this work is to keep it more dancer oriented. There's a lot of different variations of ab work though that you could certainly incorporate. But I would say stick to this at least at the beginning, and then if you have some other like great ab exercises that you want to incorporate, you can absolutely do that. I would say these exercises for the most part are dancer centered for a reason, because I integrate these into dance classes, but for some people these are too difficult. So just always going back to a simple ab exercise is perfectly appropriate. I just want to talk a little bit about what that is. So there's a couple of different philosophies. There's one philosophy floating around that you keep the head towards the ceiling here and then come down. There's another sort of more Pilates philosophy that keeps the head on the spine and looking up towards the center. I don't care which philosophy you use. I just don't want you to have tension in your neck. For some people, they get more tension in their neck by lifting their head up, and for some people, they get more tension in their neck by keeping the head and focus up towards the ceiling. For me, I want you to be working your abs. So that's what I'm focused on. So I recommend if you want to choose something for yourself, that's fine. But also be a little bit flexible in that, because sometimes people are so rigid about the neck position, and then people end up so sore in their neck muscles, like they're not even working their abs. So that doesn't make sense to me. So I think it's important. I think either one is fine. Just know sort of the reasoning. So the reasoning behind using the long neck is so that you're not getting tension here as you're coming up. So you're not pulling with the neck as you come up. The problem for some people is that they can't help but have tension as they're keeping their head in that position. So you should be able to have a relaxed head and relaxed front of the throat. I think of, this is kind of weird, but I liken it to the front of the foot. So the front of the throat should be relaxed in an ab curl in the same way the front of the foot should be relaxed in a plie. Does that make sense? I know it's kind of weird, but it's kind of like elbow pits, knee pits, kind of thing. I like to make parallels in the body because it helps me to kind of cross over and remember from one thing to the next. So that softness in the neck is really important. The more Pilates version keeps the head on the spine, and the idea is that you have so much, Pilates really works spinal mobility. So you should have enough spinal mobility to get the head up high enough that the head balances and then comes back down. So it has this point, the top of the curve, where the head just balances and then comes back down. That's great if you have the spinal mobility to do that. But it could end up like this if you don't have the spinal mobility to do it. So you just have to be careful and watch people.
One thing I do is I have women spread their hands out and put their thumb on their neck and their pinky on the top of their skull, and then just rest their fingers in the middle. So that reminds them, because they can feel it when they feel their neck, and it lengthens it, so that when they go up,
That's great.
whether they curve or not, they have support for the whole thing.
Great, great, I love that. All right, so the first part of this exercise is an articulation of the feet into a plie. So as I did with you guys from here, make sure that the legs are straight up from the hip sockets in this position. So you don't want to bring the legs in for some dancers especially will have the hamstring flexibility to do that. Most people won't. Where this becomes uncomfortable is if you don't have the hamstring flexibility and you have to hold your legs up here for a really long time. This is an ab workout in and of itself. Okay? So be aware of that if you're working with people with tight hamstrings. And so you can offer them the alternative, of course, of coming down and just doing a regular position. I had you guys put the ball between your legs. I like that because it's just kind of like a little added challenge, but it's already going to be challenging for your regular clients, especially if they have limited hamstring mobility. So just kind of keep that in mind. From here, What I did with you guys is, and I like this idea, Bridget, I'm gonna try this out this time, okay? So I take the foot articulation plie. From here, I'm trying to keep the the heels right above the hip bones here, and then come back to center. So what I'm not doing is this and hinging. What I'm doing is I'm thinking about holding up the ceiling with my feet, and then trying to get my feet really flat here, and then coming back to the center. So I go as I curl in, and then come back to center. Also, I like to use the term ab curl instead of crunch. The ab curl, the idea that everything's kind of curling in and coming back out, is different than crunch, which is such a harsh word. So I've kind of deleted, for the most part, crunch from my vocabulary, unless I'm working with people that have never crunch, that they might know that word. And then I explain the notion of what an ab curl is. It's that flexion of the spine. So anyway, that's the first part of the series, and then I go into a turned out position. You can do a wide turned out position or a first position here, and then if I don't have the ball, I can take the plie in this position. So I could go through this position, or if I have the ball, what I will do, or even if I don't have the ball, is lower down and then lift up. And it's okay if you can't get very low. That's all right. You want to make sure that these muscles in the low back, right back here, don't release. So let me show wrong. Here's wrong. See my pelvis, how it's tilting? Wrong. Right. Okay, and then I put my hands behind my head. I can add the ab, curl. And so I'm getting my upper and my lower abs. This also is pretty hip flexor heavy. Okay, so that you're using the hip flexors. So for some people, they might get a little cramping in the hip flexors. Not uncommon, especially if they're not used to working through the hips. So keep that in mind, okay? Yes.
I'm just, because this is, I talked about this yesterday, because I have hamstring, not a lot of flexibility, and my back, not a lot of flexibility. I'm wondering if there's if it would be bad to start with a towel under your hips.
Sure. I think that's a fine idea.
Because I'm thinking that, I forget where I did this. I think it was probably voice class. But using a rolled up mat, because then I can get my hips more square to my more perpendicular to my body than I can when I'm all the way flat.
Yeah.
I'm already tipping back here.
Okay, so just show it real quick.
Okay.
I like it.
So with a towel or a yoga blanket.
And then go ahead and take your plie and then and then straighten. Good. And then take it with the ab curl. And how does that feel? Does that feel okay?
It feels good. I mean, I don't think I'm getting as much. It's easier.
Yeah, but that's good. That's good.
I can also do it.
Do it. Yeah. And then let's take the leg straightening down. And then coming back up. Good.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm limited here anyway.
Right, and that's okay. Just watching your rib. I'm watching her rib cage. I can see your rib cage. Yeah, just watch so that your rib cage doesn't flare, because that tells me you're relaxing your low back.
That's actually a good indication though, because it's easier to feel this way too.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
Good. So we discovered something new. That's great. That's great. And I 100% want you to be creative with this work, especially with regard to your own bodies too. So when that stuff happens, that's the kind of stuff, please share. Or I had this client today, or I had this student or person or whoever it is, and this is the kind of stuff that I want to know because it helps me develop the work. So I love that idea. Where's my pen? I shall write it in.
Well, and in Fitzmaurice, we used our Zoffus a lot like that, because we assume a lot less flexibility.
Yep.
They started.
They
started with the technique's been developing, but we started with just doing hip, which you can it's kind of emergency. I still use this.
Yeah.
But now we get the bigger use of Zoffus when we do legs up stuff. But it's kind of
Great.
thing.
Great. I'll add it in. You are now Alana Alana's modification, now part of Ultra Bar forever and ever, from here forth. That's great, thank you, that's a great modification. So that's certainly an option, and I love that, I love like being creative with the work like that is excellent. The other exercise that is sort of part 2 of this that I do with my dancers a lot is in order to build up the spine mobility. So from here, it's the seated position. So sometimes I'll have a ball between the legs, or sometimes I won't, but the idea of curling back. And for some people, they'll be really limited with how far they can go. Other people can go back pretty far and come all the way back up. Just to say, this has shifted for me. I had spinal fusion surgery, so I am fused at my sacrum and my first vertebra. And so with that fusion here, so with that fusion, I don't have mobility at that place anymore. So I've had to kind of redo how I do some of these exercises. But I can tell you, even with a fused spine, I can still go all the way down and all the way up. So it's possible. It's absolutely possible. For the first 3 months, I couldn't even bend or extend my spine. So I couldn't be anything but flat. So there was a lot of modifications that I had to make in terms of just laying on my back and then doing leg stuff instead of abs. So, but as soon as I got cleared, this is an exercise I started working on. And because I really believe in spinal mobility, as a dancer, you know I love this, and as a choreographer. So one of the things I wanted to get back in myself first was that spinal mobility. So it's absolutely possible for people. From here, even just a little bit of curve and coming back up is excellent. Okay, and for some people, they may still, even in this position, need to hold on behind the leg. And actually, it feels good. It's kind of a nice stretch. But holding on behind the legs, totally fine. And then you just get a little bit further. And then you get a little bit further. With you guys, I know that you have more mobility, so you're able to go down and back up. So I usually go 4 counts down, 4 counts up. But then I'll do that several times, 10 usually at least. And then I go side to side. So I'll curve down, but what I'm trying to do is keep my legs even. So there's a version of an oblique version that twists and alternates like this. There's nothing wrong with that, but what I'm trying to do is get you to stabilize the low body. Okay? So I go from here down 2, 3, 4, up 2, 3, 4, down 2, 3, 4, up 2, 3, 4. Okay? And then I take the curve back. Then I take a little pulse. 1, 2, 3. If you're not fatigued by that point, you will be fatigued after that. And I also take a paddle. So from here, I'm paddling. I'm looking at my right elbow and then my left elbow. And then I'm staying as low as I can stay. For some people, that won't be very low. It might be here, here. That's okay. They keep working towards that position. Finally, I did a slightly different variation of coccyx balance today. There's a lot of different options for that. Can I have one of your balls, my dear? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. No.
Sorry to take a ball. Thank you. So coccyx balance, one of the more beginning ways to do it is to use the ball here. Now this is hard. This is really hard even here. So I'm not doing this with beginning level people or clients, okay? From here, you can go here, or can I have your other ball real quick? Or somebody? Thank you. So I can do ball between the legs just to remind me to activate here and activate here, pulling up through the chest. So I'm nice and open, my head is on my spine. A lot of times if you see me, I'm looking at you guys, so but assume head is on the spine, okay? So from here, you want to be in the lifted up position, and eventually you'll want to take this ball away. So there was an exercise I did with you today, here to here. That's an option, okay? Or you could take the balls away, and from here, straighten and lower, okay? We can also do crisscross, here. Or we could go here. Okay, so many variations of coccyx balance, but obviously those last ones are really hard. Okay, so this ultra abs is split up into, which you can see now, 4 different sections. So part A is the first 4 dots. part B is the second 4 dots, and part C is the third 4 dots. Does that make sense? Okay, so just, you can split those things up, and you can absolutely modify as needed. Again, coccyx balance, not doing with like just anyone, okay? That's way advanced. Cues, in all exercises, pull the navel to the spine. Try to feel the abs widen and flatten as opposed to crunch, okay? When lowering the shoulder blades, curve the pelvis under and hollow out the abdominals to the tips of the shoulder blades, and then try not to use momentum as you come back up. That's another thing that I see this. Like using their arms to come back up, or this. Much easier. Much easier. I don't let anybody do any of that. During the pulses should be really minimal. The oblique paddling is just paddling the arms. I cue focus on this one, so I encourage people to look back at their elbows so they're fully twisting, getting the advantage of the oblique twist. Yes?
Sorry, for the B, where you said repeat arms and also feeling, what?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Are you talking, like,
Sorry, I during the pulses here, or sorry, going to second here, and then you can take the pulses. I'm not necessarily pulsing my arms. I'm pulsing my back.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm pulsing back this way.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
All right, paddle, coccyx balance. We talked about navel to spine opening through the chest. Even just finding the coccyx balance here is hard. So, you know, there's a first work towards the simpler things and then work up. For modifications, I love Alana's modification. It's in. Another thing that I really like to do is place the ball between the knees and at the back. So if you have enough for 2 balls, that's a really great way to do it.
Teal, what's
Yeah.
the modification for the coccyx balance, so there's not as much like tension in your hip flexors?
There really isn't one. There isn't really a way to take away that hip flexor.
Okay.
I mean, a little bit with the feedback in the back, it's easier to open up. The other thing you can do is actually just try to keep the legs looser, so you're not. So I'm really lifted here, but it's because I know where my femur bone needs to sit down in the acetabulum of my hip, and I know where the sweet spot is. So I'm not trying to hold it too far in or too far out. I actually find the sweet spot where the femur bone just clicks right in. So I think of it from a skeletal perspective, and once you find that place, there's definitely a sweet spot. So play with that a little bit, but also, you know, anytime you're having hip flexor tightness, try to loosen up in the hips, even if you're going like this. That's fine. Keep the legs moving, and you can keep the legs moving and still get the ab workout. I mean, not that you have to go this fast, but just, you know, just slightly moving here. It's going to help prevent you from gripping or over gripping. Okay. But I wish there was a modification. I mean, it requires strong hip flexors. So if you're having, you know, a lot of tightness in your hip flexors, don't do it. You know, simply don't do it. I definitely think that with regard to some of these exercises, it's kind of a pick your battles moment. If you're having, you know, injuries or a lot of tightness in your hip flexors, you don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over. There's a fair amount of exercises in this work that does strengthen your hip flexors. There's also some hip openers, and so you want to make sure that you do those hip openers as well. So I always like to counter those things and make sure that if I'm doing some of the hip flexor work, it's heavy on the hip flexors, that I'm countering it and doing something like a leg tone. So I make sure that I'm opening up that hip, or making sure that I'm going into a standing lunge where I'm opening up the chest, opening up the hip, and doing some sort of, and that, like the lunge, it strengthens the low body, but also stretches out the front part of the hip. So we can consider that dynamic stretching. So it's you know, anything, that's why yoga is so great for the hip flexors, because you're moving through all of these beautiful positions, and it's opening up the hips at the same time. So you could definitely, after this even, you could go through have you been in my technique class where we do the yoga series where you open? Yeah, oh yeah, modern last semester we did it. Not teaching modern this year has been really bizarre. So I hope I'm forgetting who's where, when, why, how. But yeah, like that exercise would be a great one to follow up because then you can open up the hips. Muscular strength does not have to equal muscular bulk. This is a physiological thing, right? So Shannon and myself, we're not ever going to have the same body, okay? So bulk for Shannon is going to look different than bulk for Teal. And because physiologically, I build muscle really quickly. And so for a long time, I fought with myself, and I still fight with myself to a certain extent. But for a long time, I really just hated my body. And so instead of fighting it, I started developing this work. And to a certain extent, yes, you can change your body, but you can't change your physiology, okay? So there are certain things about me that I'm always gonna have big legs and developed glutes. And even as much weight as I lose, I still have those things. So I think it's really important to understand your body and just work in the best version of your body. Some of us are more blessed than others in terms of our genetics, and I don't believe that you have to be a stick figure to be fit and healthy. In fact, I strongly disagree with that notion. I think that you can be fit and healthy at a lot of different weights and a lot of different body types. So I think that always striving for the best version of you and never comparing to others is the most important thing. So keep that in mind when you're doing this work because there's a lot of claims out there, oh, ballerina body, you do this thing and you get a ballerina body. Well, yes, and. You will become more fit in your body. You will learn to work more efficiently. You will learn to access the proper muscles. Now let me tell you, when I started learning how to access the muscles properly, my body did change. But only to a certain extent. I was bulkier. My thighs were bigger. My butt was rounder. And so it's all relative, right? Whereas someone like Shannon, not to point you out, but you're really lean. And then even in comparison, you're also really lean, but you're muscular. And so, you have like the fine line even between two people that probably are very close in size, your physiology is different. So how this all will sort of manifest itself in different bodies is going to be different from each person, from person to person. And so that being said, when you're working with clients, if they're getting frustrated with their own bodies, you have to remind them that I'm simply never going to look like Valerie Robin. I wish my legs were here, and I wish all of those things, but I can't wish it into my body. So we've got to work with what we do, and I think going back to working safely and working in a way that's really super efficient is the best thing you can possibly do for yourself. And I will say, just from, I know I'm bringing this into it a lot, but from a rehab perspective, I was able to rehab really quickly from spinal fusion surgery because my core was really strong going in. And so, when I literally trained for my back surgery. And if people start approaching surgical procedures that way, if you get to the point where you have to have surgery, which I never recommend, but if you get to that point where that's the only option, train for your surgery. I know you guys aren't rehab people, but you might go through it yourself. You might work with somebody that's injured, or you might have to go through some sort of surgery. You train for that surgery. You get as strong as you possibly can in your body in as best shape as possible going into those kinds of procedures, and you'll come out and your rehabilitation time will be much less. But you have to do the work, right? So I've been doing ultra bar since literally 5 days after my surgery. I started doing little tiny things, little baby things, but just to keep myself moving, okay?
Have you worked with pregnant women?
No, I wish it's so funny you say that.
Because that's being, this is something that's coming up in Ms. Morris too.
Yeah.
About talking about, when you were talking about preparing for surgery, like there's kind of a new
Preparing for birth.
mindset now that
Yeah.
like you can, there's no point in waiting till after you give birth to be in the best shape of your life.
Absolutely.
You should really be in the best shape of your life when you're giving birth.
Absolutely,
We
absolutely.
do have a lot of belly dance.
Yeah, oh, I bet,
Yeah,
I
tons
bet.
of it, yeah.
I 100% agree with that. There have been, my friend Heather Boyson, who's also, she's had 2 children and she's natural childbirth, and holy cow. But she's certified in ultrabar, and she's talked about that, developing some of the work for pregnant women specifically. My interest is certainly there. I don't have any pregnant friends that are here right now that I can work with. So I love the idea of that, and but it just hasn't happened yet. Valerie Robin is actually pregnant now, and so we're going to do a training together in Colorado Springs. So I imagine we'll start to think about that. So that literally in the next month is on the agenda. So thank you for saying that, and certainly, you guys are kind of like not thinking about this so much now necessarily, but it's important stuff, and you're exactly right. Preparing for childbirth is really important, because it is, for some women, it's the most physical thing they will ever do in their lives. So you're right. Why not train for it? So I love it, and I love the idea of it, and stay tuned.
There are studies that say that if you work out or do things while you're pregnant, it not only is easier to get back in shape, but it makes you feel a lot better.
And it not only like getting in shape and feeling better, but also like getting the baby out
It helps
physically.
It also helps the baby. It helps strengthen the baby's heart.
Yeah,
when you work out.
It's amazing. And physiologically speaking, all of this work is, for the most part, whenever you're, drawing everything in towards the center, you're activating your pelvic floor. So all of this work is also good for, especially women that have had children naturally, pre-birth and post-birth. Things are different down there. And so it's a great way to also engage the pelvic floor, as are, there's a lot of other ways that you can train that, but this is, embedded in the work, and my friend Roberto has a great thing that he says in class that I've started integrating: squeeze number 1 and number 2. And I like it because it's like, oh, okay, yep, I'm doing that. I know how to do that. And he integrates that into class, and I love it, because it's like, yeah, our pelvic floor is important. And especially as women, it's a gateway to a lot of things. But it is. And we have to talk about those things, because if we don't talk about them, things will come up. And I think for a lot of women, now exercise is a mini history lesson, but exercise used to not be something women did. And so even when, my mom is in her 60s, okay? And now granted, I grew up in Montana, so things were a little bit different if I would have grown up in New York City. But when she was in school, there were girl sports that they could do, and girl things that they, in terms of gym class. So their gym class, they could do they had 3 options of things they could do. And none of it involved lifting weights. So she never learned how to lift weights, and never learned how to exercise for fitness, and never learned those things. She was active in terms of gymnastics, and I think they could do gymnastics and volleyball and dance team, drill team, baton twirling, majorettes, that's what it's called. So those were their options if they wanted to be physical. None of that involved conditioning. And so it's relatively new for women to even be conditioning. So remember that. We learn some basic stuff in gym class, right? So at least, hopefully. Now they'll probably cut all of that too, but that's a whole other issue. But we learn how to, lift hand weights. Usually there's some sort of weight and resistance training program. But there will be women that will come into your open classes that may have never held a weight before. So that's a whole new idea. So you have to make sure that you're aware of that, and training them on how, this is how you hold it, this is how, you don't want tension in your hands, you don't want all those things we take for granted, which I think is kind of interesting now, because now we'll have generations that will have always had exercise as part of their lives. Unfortunately, there's also this obesity epidemic that's taking over vaccination, which is a whole other issue. By the way, watch the Fed Up documentary. I sent it to you.
Yeah,
You
you
said,
have to watch it,
yeah, it's
yeah.
really good. It's called Fed Up, and it's on Netflix, and it's great. It's really, really well done. It's about all the sugar in our diet and the sugar addiction that has taken over the United States, and and also the sort of obesity epidemic and what the government is actually doing to support it, which is scary. So you should watch it. It's like every person in their life should have to watch it. It's great, but anyway, that's a whole other thing. You were gonna say something?
Oh, it was about the pregnancy thing.
Oh, yeah.
Belly dancing is really great for pregnant women. All the pregnant women I've had in class that took it, even if they were beginners, managed to give birth in under 12 hours in the first child, which is insane.
Wow.
Yeah, that's totally insane. And I had one woman, her first birth was 6 hours. She was like a regular, she'd been dancing for years. And then her second son, she didn't dance during it, and it was a 24-hour delivery.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
So-
just a statistic.
That is, I mean,
was-
that's
yeah.
reason enough. If I were to birth a child,
Yeah,
I'm
like,
belly dancing.
What you after college?
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, really, super- and they could dance the whole way through. Like my one friend
Yeah.
did had the 6 hour birth. She performed till 8.5 months.
Wow.
And she only quit then because she said she felt awkward. She looked beautiful, but she felt awkward and she just felt like weird and fat and didn't want to do it. And I was like, and that's the only reason she quit. She could still do it till the day she gave birth. She could still
That's
dance.
awesome.
So it was some kind of movement for her. And
Yeah,
a lot of
and
people
it's,
can't move that much when they're that pregnant either.
again, and it's also, being body positive.
Yeah.
All of those things are so important. We think about, hi, I'm here and I'm a teacher and I'm coming to class and I'm whatever, teaching these exercises, but it's so much more than that. This is, and for some people, they come and this is their only hour away from their children twice a week. It's their only hour that they get to themselves, where they're doing something for them. And it's their only hour that they're looking in the mirror and they're feeling good about themselves. You have to remember that your job as a teacher is so much bigger than coming and teaching a few exercises. And
I have a whole speech about that.
yeah, I mean, it's so important, and it's the stuff that we don't teach in school. I don't think. I mean, I think we all should have to, think about those things and think about how important that our role is as a teacher and as a sort of fitness educator, if you want to put it that way. We have a lot on our shoulders, and I think teachers in general don't get enough credit. But I think slowly we really can kind of change the world, not to be ridiculous and super cheesy, which it is, but we can, one person at a time, and you kind of, I do this work because I believe in it. I don't do this work to make money, obviously, because otherwise I'd be a lot more rich. But anyway, but I don't do this work to exploit people. I don't do this work to, I don't know, have my face on a brand or like something like that. I do it because I believe in it. And that's why I only want people like you guys doing this kind of work, because I want people who believe in it to be teaching the work, and that will keep the integrity of the work alive. That's so important to me. I don't want it to, I had opportunities at the beginning to franchise and to grow big really fast, and I really just did not feel comfortable doing that. I mean, first of all, I would have had to leave teaching you guys here, which would have been sad, because it's such a big part of what feeds me as a person, and obviously creative work, it feeds me as well. But the idea of this sort of becoming bigger and expanding too quickly also meant that I had to give up a lot of control over who was doing what, when, why, and how. And for me, that just wasn't worth it. So I hope you understand that all of this stuff has been thought through once, twice, 500 times. And it's because I really believe in these exercises. And it also means a lot to me, Alana, when somebody like you is saying, okay, let's try, what about this modification? Cool, it's in. I love that. So I hope that you take ownership over this work. You are now Ultra Bar instructors. You now have the responsibility to keep this work alive and to keep it going. And I love that Bridge is back. It's like, oh good, refresher. You all, please refresh. come back next year, come do it again. It's so much better, and in some ways, hearing it a second time really solidifies how you know the work in your body. I've had other people come and come again for the second or third time, and even Valerie and I do the trainings together, and a lot of times, and so she's like heard the training a million times and done the training a million times herself, and it's like over and over and over. But what we were talking about the last time we were together was, what's cool is that every time I learn something new, and every time, from her and from students. And so it's so cool, that exchange of information. All right. I think I'm off my soapbox now. I have to do it at least once per day. Anyway, I just really love teaching. I hope.
Well, can I just say something also?
Please.
It's wonderful that you model, like, the big thing for my transition and my teaching this year, and it's something I was already doing but was like put into words for me, is about really being in the room with students, because I think that that's not practiced as much as it should be, especially in these kind of disciplines. I think it's important in any classroom.
Yeah.
But like teaching who's in front of you that moment, that day.
Yes.
Like in yoga, they always tell you can only bring the body you have that day to class. You can't be like, it's, oh, I did it this other way last time. But it's the same with teaching. Like, you can only teach who's there, with their injuries and their limitations in that day, in that moment. And you really teach that. So it's good to have that model, because it's really important. And
Absolutely.
And that's what I realized, like, when I think back to my best teachers, that's what they're practicing. It's not like I have some agenda I'm going to thrust on you, and you're going to do it my way, and I don't care what your, opinion of it. And if you can't do it that way, you're wrong. But like, here's the material, and let's see where we're going to go with it. And maybe it's going to be totally unexpected. And today, this happens sometimes with my voice students. Today we're just going to lie on the floor and breathe and like make some sound, because that's what you need today. And it's different.